The California dream is collapsing. Prince Harry is reportedly rushing to pack up his life in Montecito, preparing to abandon the multi-million-dollar estate that was meant to symbolize freedom, healing, and a new beginning. This is not a relaxed return home, and it has nothing to do with reconciliation or repairing family bonds. What's unfolding looks far more like a retreat, an urgent dash toward the protection of an institution he once openly criticized, mocked, and rejected. The timing could not be worse. As Harry prepares his departure, newly released images from Piers Morgan have ignited controversy on both sides of the Atlantic. These are not harmless holiday photos or casual party shots from Meghan Markle's past. They are yacht images, photographs placing her within elite social circles linked to the same world once shaped by Jeffrey Epstein and managed by Ghislaine Maxwell. This is the very social network that shattered Prince Andrew's reputation and forced his permanent removal from public royal life. Now, that same shadowy ecosystem threatens to engulf the carefully curated California life Harry built after severing ties with the monarchy. The prince who spent years torching royal bridges is suddenly racing back across the ashes, seeking refuge from the very institution he once described as toxic, racist, and cruel. The revelation that shifted everything came from Piers Morgan, a man never known for retreating from controversy. Yet even by his standards, what he disclosed in a recent interview went far beyond routine tabloid provocation. With a familiar expression that suggested he knew more than he was saying, Morgan released details that triggered more than 57,000 complaints to ITV. Thousands demanded his dismissal simply for questioning the Duchess of Sussex. Social media erupted almost instantly, mobilizing in Meghan's defense. But the situation took a far more unsettling turn behind the scenes. Meghan Markle herself allegedly contacted Morgan's employers directly, applying personal pressure to have him removed. This was not done through official statements or via a powerful public relations team, but through direct, private communication, an attempt to silence a journalist whose questions were becoming increasingly uncomfortable. Despite the pressure, Morgan remained in place. As he later noted with visible satisfaction, he was not cancelled. The reason, he implied, was simple: the evidence he had spent years quietly collecting was too substantial to dismiss, and it was only now beginning to emerge publicly. The yacht photographs place Meghan in environments that take on new significance when viewed in hindsight. They document her presence at exclusive Soho House openings around the world, including a 2015 event in Istanbul. Insiders from those circles described her role as social filler. While the phrase may sound dismissive, it serves a specific function. Social fillers are attractive, engaging individuals brought into elite spaces to create a lively, welcoming atmosphere before the most powerful guests arrive. This role does not bring fame or public recognition, but it does grant access to private rooms, private gatherings, and spaces where cameras are absent and records are minimal. The pattern is consistent: international flights, appearances aboard luxury yachts, constant movement through elite circles filled with billionaires, power brokers, and individuals whose influence operates well outside public view. This was not occasional exposure. It was sustained, repeated, and documented across multiple continents over several years. Observers eventually began asking an unavoidable question: how did the numbers make sense? At the time these images were taken, Meghan Markle was a supporting actress on Suits, a cable series with a loyal but limited audience. She portrayed a paralegal, a recurring role, yes, but not one associated with massive earnings. Industry estimates suggest her income would have been comfortable, but nowhere near sufficient to support the lifestyle depicted in these photos. A mid-six-figure salary from a cable show does not typically pay for private jet travel, Mediterranean yacht appearances, luxury hotels across Europe, and ongoing access to ultra-exclusive events. The financial gap is glaring. How does an actress on a moderately successful television series live with the mobility and access of someone worth hundreds of millions? Where did the money come from? Who enabled entry into circles usually reserved for the extremely wealthy or extraordinarily well-connected? Piers Morgan was not the only one who noticed. Others saw the same inconsistencies but chose silence. The proximity to immense wealth, the repeated presence in spaces where powerful men let their guard down, where social rules loosened and boundaries blurred, none of it resulted in accusations without proof. Instead, people remembered. They stored observations, flagged contradictions, and waited. Memory requires no urgency. It simply holds information until the context changes. And when the woman from those yacht photos suddenly appeared beside a prince, wearing a royal title, waving from palace balconies, and becoming one of the most famous figures on the planet, those old memories acquired new and explosive significance. Then there is the Ghislaine Maxwell factor. Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year sentence in a Florida federal prison. Her social empire has collapsed. Her influence is gone. Her future is confined to concrete walls and razor wire, and she is unlikely ever to regain her freedom. Convicted for her role in grooming young girls for Jeffrey Epstein and his associates, Maxwell represents a unique danger precisely because of her position. Prosecutors understand a basic truth about human behavior: people remain silent when silence still benefits them. When they have allies, leverage, hope. Maxwell has none of these. Her former friends have disappeared. Her wealth is gone. Her reputation is beyond repair. She has nothing left to lose, and potentially something to gain, by cooperating. According to sources connected to federal investigators, Maxwell has begun speaking openly. Not in coded language or vague suggestions, but in names. Specific individuals. Real people who moved through the same elite social networks she once managed alongside Epstein. This is where Soho House becomes critical. It was not merely a trendy private club for creatives, despite its polished public image. Behind the scenes, its global locations functioned as connective tissue between worlds that rarely intersect openly. Hollywood met international finance. New wealth mingled with old aristocracy. Those who sought attention crossed paths with those who avoided cameras entirely. These gatherings were not accidental. They were curated environments, engineered to feel energetic and welcoming when powerful guests arrived. The right ambience. The right faces. The right balance of charm, beauty, and discretion. Meghan Markle was reportedly flown across borders to be one of those faces, helping create precisely the atmosphere that made influential men feel at ease and generous. The story shifts from disturbing speculation to serious legal gravity with the civil case brought by Virginia Giuffre, the woman whose testimony destroyed Prince Andrew's public standing and ended his royal duties. During that case, Meghan Markle's name nearly surfaced in court, not as a defendant, the distinction that matters deeply, but as a potential witness. Witnesses are not accused of wrongdoing. They are simply individuals who may have seen, heard, or been present during events that later became legally significant. During discovery, court-related positioning revealed that investigators had 3 clear reasons for considering Meghan as a potential witness. First, she resided in the United States, which made legal jurisdiction simple and avoided international complications. Second, investigators viewed her as a close associate of Prince Andrew during a time frame that overlapped with the alleged abuse. Third, she was believed to have moved within Jeffrey Epstein's wider social circle during years when criminal activity was actively taking place. In the end, she was never called to testify because the case was settled before that step became necessary. However, the real damage was never about the final outcome. It lay in the fact that seasoned federal investigators with subpoena authority reviewed Meghan's background and concluded there was something meaningful enough to question under oath. In federal sex trafficking and abuse cases, witnesses are not nearly called without solid reasons to believe their testimony could matter. That near call should have been an unmistakable red flag. Instead, it was quietly overshadowed by non-stop media focus on royal wedding spectacle and fairy-tale romance narratives. Years later, as Ghislaine Maxwell speaks from prison and Piers Morgan releases photographic evidence, that narrowly avoided testimony now appears less like a coincidence and more like a temporary escape. Montecito, once framed as paradise, has become something else entirely. As the yacht scandal explodes across media outlets on both sides of the Atlantic, Montecito has simultaneously become unlivable for the Sussexes. This is not a single setback but a cascading collapse, with multiple failures converging and intensifying one another. Affluent neighbors in Montecito have effectively shut Harry and Meghan out. Invitations to charity events have disappeared. Dinner parties that once included them have quietly removed their names from guest lists. Even the exclusive cafes and boutiques that initially welcomed the couple have turned into tense environments where Meghan reportedly feels scrutinized rather than admired. One local resident, speaking anonymously, summed it up bluntly. This community already has real celebrities who don't generate global controversy everywhere they go. Privacy, discretion, and positive contribution matter here. The Sussexes brought cameras, conflict, and constant disruption. As far as locals are concerned, they are no longer welcome. While the social isolation is severe, the financial strain is even more punishing. Netflix, which committed over $100 million to the couple in a deal that made international headlines, is now effectively walking away. Executives are frustrated that the promised output never arrived in a meaningful form. The documentary series became a prolonged grievance session that alienated viewers instead of attracting sympathy. Later projects either failed outright or stalled indefinitely. Industry insiders say Netflix has no intention of offering further chances, and the partnership has deteriorated beyond repair. One entertainment source put it bluntly, the data shows Harry and Meghan are not delivering the engagement or subscriber growth Netflix expected for such a massive investment. From a brand perspective, they've become a liability. Then there is the Archewell Foundation, which now reads like a textbook example of organizational failure. 11 experienced professionals, 11, who relocated their lives to help build what was meant to be the Sussexes' empire, have exited in rapid succession. Among them was executive director James Holt, who appeared prominently in the Netflix series and moved his entire family from the UK to support the Archewell mission. He stayed just long enough to realize the operation could not be salvaged before leaving quietly. The head of public relations lasted exactly 7 months. In non-profit and PR circles, departures that fast are universally viewed as warning signs of an intolerable workplace, dysfunctional leadership, or both. The financial pressure is becoming impossible to disguise. The Montecito mansion alone cost $14 million. Annual property taxes reach well into 6 figures. Security expenses run into the millions each year to maintain the level of protection they insist upon. Their lifestyle demands a steady stream of high income that no longer exists. Spotify collapsed dramatically, with executive Bill Simmons publicly labeling Harry and Meghan grifters on his way out. Netflix is effectively finished with them. Book deals, speaking engagements, and commercial opportunities have dried up as public interest fades and backlash grows. Multiple sources now say Meghan is actively researching ways out. Texas has been discussed frequently due to the absence of state income tax. Several European countries are also being considered, particularly those offering favorable tax structures and stronger privacy protections for wealthy residents. She appears desperate to escape a community that has rejected her so thoroughly. But relocation cannot solve the deeper problem. Piers Morgan's yacht photographs are circulating worldwide, and Ghislaine Maxwell's prison testimony is not constrained by geography, jurisdiction, or legal teams. The pregnancy controversy refuses to disappear. As the yacht images spread and scrutiny of Meghan's past intensifies, Morgan's long-standing claims about inconsistencies during her pregnancy are resurfacing with renewed force. If the yacht story demonstrates that a carefully curated public persona conflicted with documented reality, it raises uncomfortable questions about what else may have been staged. The pregnancy irregularities once dismissed as isolated incidents are now being reconsidered collectively, and the pattern many see is deeply unsettling. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood outside the Lindo wing just hours after giving birth, wearing heels, with flawless hair and makeup, proudly presenting her newborns to the public. On 3 separate occasions, she upheld tradition with complete transparency and shared moments of joy with the people who support the monarchy. Meghan, by contrast, transformed her pregnancy into an evolving mystery, where details shifted repeatedly, creating confusion and suspicion instead of celebration. At times, her baby bump appeared unmistakably prominent, round, high, and constantly cradled in a way familiar to pregnant women. Her movements were careful and exaggerated, as if guarding something fragile. Then, sometimes just days later, photographs showed the bump dramatically smaller, flatter, or positioned differently. Her physical behavior shifted just as dramatically. In some appearances, she moved cautiously, hands shielding her stomach, every step deliberate. In others, from nearly the same time period, she climbed stairs rapidly, pivoted easily, bent down without effort, and showed no visible physical limitation. These were not slow changes unfolding over months, as pregnancy normally progresses. They were sharp contrasts occurring within days, even hours. One appearance showed a woman so heavily pregnant she struggled to move comfortably. The next day, she appeared agile enough to move freely in 5-inch stiletto heels. According to claims that emerged during the pregnancy and were never adequately addressed or denied, internal royal scheduling documents began circulating among palace staff. The documents in question were said to detail Meghan's medical appointments and movements during her pregnancy, supposedly for security and logistical reasons, which is standard practice for senior royals. The issue arose when several of those recorded hospital visits allegedly coincided with days Meghan was photographed by multiple independent sources attending public engagements across London. These were not tight schedules that could be justified by efficiency or timing. They were full days in which official records placed her in one location, while photographic evidence placed her somewhere else entirely. A person cannot physically be in two places at once. Pregnancy timelines are fixed, not open to interpretation. This leaves only two possibilities: either the records were falsified for reasons unknown, or public appearances were carried out by someone else while Meghan attended medical appointments in private. Neither explanation is reasonable, and neither reflects positively on anyone involved. What truly unsettled even previously supportive observers was another inconsistency: the quietly abandoned promise of a home birth. Through trusted palace sources, Meghan had emphasized her desire for a private, intimate delivery at Frogmore Cottage. She framed it as a natural and personal choice, deliberately avoiding the formality of hospital procedures and the spectacle of media attention. The public found this entirely plausible. Home births are common, and at the time, nothing about the plan seemed questionable. Then May 6, 2019 arrived. Without any prior clarification or subsequent explanation, Meghan delivered her child at London's exclusive Portland Hospital instead. It was not the home birth that had been described, nor the publicly discussed location, but an entirely different hospital that had never been mentioned before. No explanation followed. Palace communications offered no justification for the sudden change. There were no references to medical complications that would necessitate hospital care. No acknowledgement that the original plan had been altered at all. The silence was striking and immediately raised doubts, prompting many to revisit earlier statements and reconsider how much of the narrative had been carefully manufactured rather than truthful. This is where the comparison to Prince Andrew becomes deeply unsettling for Prince Harry. Harry witnessed firsthand how Andrew's downfall unfolded, watching his uncle be stripped of his royal duties and public role in real time. Andrew's collapse did not come from gossip, media pressure, or unproven claims. It came from sworn testimony. He lost his titles, patronages, military associations, and reputation once allegations were formally made under oath, photographs were verified, and victims gave depositions that created permanent legal records. At that moment, the image of a respectable royal disintegrated completely. This is how scandals truly end in the legal world. Not through sensational headlines that eventually fade, and not through carefully worded public relations statements crafted by high-priced attorneys. They end with documents, depositions, and testimony given under penalty of perjury, records that cannot be erased or spun away. Andrew became a textbook example within royal circles of how long institutional silence can protect someone, sometimes for decades, until the moment it no longer can. All it takes is one sworn statement and the entire protective structure collapses instantly. The parallels between Andrew's situation and Harry's current predicament are deeply alarming, and Harry understands them better than anyone. Both men are royals linked to Epstein-associated circles through documented social connections. Both spent time in environments where accountability was absent and boundaries were blurred. Andrew was explicitly named in Virginia Giuffre's sworn testimony, creating a permanent legal record that no settlement could undo. Meghan, meanwhile, came close to being called as a witness in that very same case. The legal proceedings that ultimately destroyed Andrew nearly placed Meghan under oath as well, forcing her to answer questions about who was present, where events occurred, and what she personally witnessed. It was the same investigation, involving the same victims, operating under the same legal framework, with subpoena authority and access to evidence the public has never seen. Harry knows that the royal institution holds resources no California-based publicist or PR team can match, no matter how wealthy or connected. These include legal experts skilled in quietly neutralizing threats, professional fixers armed with centuries of institutional knowledge and ancient protocols designed specifically to prevent scandals from ever reaching courtrooms, where testimony becomes permanent and uncontrollable. The royal system has long demonstrated its ability to absorb uncomfortable histories and render them irrelevant. History offers examples Harry is undoubtedly familiar with. Princess Sophia of Sweden, for instance, had a well-documented background in glamour modeling and alleged proximity to Epstein-linked social circles as early as 2005. After marrying into royalty, that history did not vanish, but it stopped being discussed in mainstream media altogether. Similarly, Crown Princess Mette-Marit of Norway publicly apologized in 2019 for maintaining a social relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The apology received brief attention, and then the matter was quietly closed. The institution moved forward, and her royal role continued without that association defining her public image. However, this is the crucial distinction driving Harry's visible panic and sudden return to London. Those protective mechanisms only work before sworn testimony begins, not after. Once investigators start asking questions under oath, once depositions are scheduled, and once subpoenas are issued through formal legal channels, no amount of royal influence or protocol can reverse the process. One question now looms over everything. A question that appears to be haunting Prince Harry as he abandons Montecito and runs back toward institutional shelter. It is devastatingly simple. What did you know about your wife's past, and when did you know it? If Harry was aware of yacht appearances, Epstein-related proximity, elite party circles, and lingering questions about how an actress from a cable television show financed such a lifestyle, and if he helped downplay or conceal that information, then he becomes complicit in a cover-up. That would expose him to legal risk and moral condemnation severe enough to erase what remains of his public credibility. If, on the other hand, he was unaware, if he failed to investigate, trusted blindly, or was deliberately misled, then he unknowingly walked into a catastrophe that now threatens everything he built in California, including his family stability and remaining ties to the royal world. Either way, the fairy tale is over. Either way, Harry now needs the protection of the very institution he spent years condemning as toxic, racist, and cruel. The same system he accused of destroying his mental health. The same family he claimed abandoned him during his darkest moments. That institution is now his only possible defense against what lies ahead. And he knows it. That is why he is running. That is why Montecito is being left behind. The California dream that once symbolized freedom, reinvention, and authenticity is now collapsing in flames as he retreats. What remains is silence, overwhelming, deliberate silence. The accumulation of evidence has reached a point where no rational observer can simply look away. Photographs released by Piers Morgan show Meghan moving comfortably within elite social circles that have documented ties to Jeffrey Epstein's network. Ghislaine Maxwell's prison statements reference individuals who occupied those same environments. Harry's abrupt return toward the safety of British institutional protection adds to the unease. So do the unresolved questions surrounding the pregnancies, questions that were never convincingly addressed. Even the birth announcements felt less like intimate family milestones and more like carefully orchestrated corporate launches. Then there was the disastrous timing at Buckingham Palace, where confusion around official announcements made the monarchy itself appear disorganized and unprepared. Add to that the mass departure of staff from Archewell, suggesting that remaining employed by the Sussexes had become professionally untenable. Yet above all these issues, one factor stands out as the most damaging of all: the total absence of response to specific, detailed accusations. Meghan has answered none of it. There have been no legal statements issued on her behalf, no clarifications from a spokesperson, no public defenses offered by celebrity allies. There have been no lawsuits, no threats, no attempts to silence critics like Piers Morgan or the media outlets amplifying these concerns. There has been nothing at all. This silence is striking when viewed against her past behavior. She previously pursued legal action over unfavorable press coverage involving her father, relied on friendly journalists being briefed anonymously, and personally contacted network executives to challenge commentators who asked difficult questions. Against that backdrop, this quiet is devastating. In the court of public opinion, silence does not signal grace or restraint, it signals an inability to refute what is being said. It feels like evasion. To millions watching, it looks indistinguishable from guilt. Harry's reaction has been, if anything, even more revealing. He has physically returned to the very institution he spent years criticizing and attempting to dismantle. The man who rebuilt his identity around shielding his family from hostile media narratives has offered no defense while detailed allegations about his wife spread across every major platform worldwide. If these claims were provably false, wouldn't he be demanding retractions immediately? Wouldn't legal action be swift and public? Wouldn't he be loudly defending his wife's reputation? Instead, there is only silence, and a hurried retreat to London, where institutional lawyers specialize in containing scandals quietly and efficiently. This is the reckoning. The pattern is unmistakable. When influential figures suddenly stop speaking and start fleeing, it is usually because the truth is closing in. When photographic evidence aligns with prison testimony, when past investigative interest resurfaces, when financial strain coincides with social isolation, the fairy tale does not merely crack, it collapses entirely. Harry faces only two possible realities. Either he was aware of Meghan's past and actively helped conceal it, making him complicit in a cover-up with potential legal consequences, or he was completely unaware and has been devastatingly misled into a marriage that now threatens everything he sacrificed his former life to build. There is no version of events that softens the outcome. The royal institution may shield Harry because he is blood royalty, Charles's son, William's brother, Diana's child. Protecting him protects the monarchy itself. But Meghan is an outsider, and history shows that the crown has never hesitated to sacrifice outsiders to preserve the bloodline it values above all else. As Harry leaves Montecito behind and Piers Morgan continues releasing increasingly damaging material, it is becoming undeniable that this reckoning is not some distant possibility. It is unfolding now, in real time, before a global audience. The only remaining uncertainty is who emerges unscathed once Ghislaine Maxwell finishes speaking from prison and sworn testimony potentially begins. Once statements are made under oath, they do not remain hidden. They become part of the legal record, searchable, quotable, and usable in future investigations and cases. When that happens, no amount of relocation, no move to another state or continent, no reliance on ancient royal protections will erase what has already been photographed, documented, investigated, and remembered by authorities with subpoena power. The yacht images exist. Documented proximity to Epstein's world exists. Prior investigative interest connected to the Virginia Giuffre case exists. Maxwell is talking. Pressure is mounting from every direction at once. Prince Harry, who once promised a new life free from institutional control and media persecution, is now rushing back to the very system he once condemned, hoping it will shield him from the consequences of decisions that are finally coming due. The California dream has ended. The fairy tale is broken. And the defining question of what comes next is simple: when testimony begins, whose names will be spoken under oath, and who will be sacrificed to protect the crown? Can Harry and Meghan withstand this pressure together? Will the monarchy protect them both? Or will someone be cast aside? What happens when Maxwell finishes naming names? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for updates as this story continues to unfold. The truth is surfacing, and it is far more explosive than anyone expected.